Donttap presents The Couch vs. the Coach, a new podcast that bars your favorite capper against your favorite coach. The hardcore versus the fighter. The homework versus the real work. They go head-to-head making picks, and you benefit.
I'm glad to try to get this going. The idea is to have, cappers, content creators, hardcore fans go up with their picks against fighters, coaches, promoters, and come with two different sort of, intellects to it. The idea is, having a fighter who steps in the cage and doing the real work, really knows how fights break down, but having somebody who maybe has been a hardcore fan for 20 plus years, who's broken down tape and understands some ins and outs. And it's an interesting idea. I wanted to bring it to the fold and sort of see what we could do with it. So Mike Harrington of the BYM podcast, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the Couch versus the Coach. Welcome to the Donttap podcast.
Bro, the honor's all mine. Thanks so much for having me. And this is a super fun idea because I talk to Bisping every week, and that guy couldn't tell you what a plus 120 underdog is. You know what I mean? It all goes over. He knows everything about fighting and nothing about gambling. So I feel like the fact that I've been a degenerate for going on 20 years now, I might just have an edge in this thing.
But then there's the fighters that have the breakdowns, and then on top of that, might also making some picks and stuff too. And we got Laramie in here, former UFC fighter, BTC champion. Laramie, welcome to Couch vs. the Coach.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to go through some picks for UFC 297, and here is how the game goes. You come with your three best picks. We'll go tit for tat, back and forth. If your pick is just straight up your pick, no matter what the line is, it's worth 1 point if it hits. If your pick is anywhere from a minus 100 or an even number all the way up to plus 199, whether it's a prop, whether it's an underdog, whatever it is, you get 2 points. Anything over plus 199 is 3 points. So if you pick a prop, say you go Mike Malott, you're like, but you know what? I like Mike Malott's submission. That's going to be a very popular one. Mike Malott's submission right now is plus 130. If that's going to be the play, Neil Magny likes to get choked. That's a possibility, right? So that would be worth 2 points if it hits. If you just went Mike Malott straight up, even though it's pretty chalk, you get 1 point for it. So we'll go tit for tat. We will go with the fighter first. TJ Laramie, you bring your first piece to the table for UFC 297. What's your first pick?
I'm gonna pick Strickland decision. I'll go decision for that.
Wow. Okay, so Strickland decision. So Duplessis comes forward with the pressure, but you think Strickland's going to be able to stretch that out and just
honestly, other than his very last performance, I feel like Dricus prior to the Whitaker fight didn't really look overly impressive leading up that. There's a reason he was a pretty heavy underdog in the Whitaker fight, which can we just dilute that down to maybe he just got that one shot in? You know what I mean? You don't really know. And it was only a round and a half of fighting, I believe. So the whole cardio thing with Dricus, I don't really know if that's still an issue or not. People can go on and on about how his septum got fixed, all this, but over 5 rounds, I don't really know how it's going to hold up. I think Strickland kind of is just going to be beating him up for 5 rounds, in my opinion.
And that is a wrinkle that a fighter could bring to the fold, because you look at a guy like Dricus, one great night, he could be on point, really on point, and Whitaker's just off. And, you could have an off night. You could have a night where just things aren't lined up right. You can't quite get it going in the cage. And I don't know that. Harrington will never know. Well, actually, Harrington, you stepped in box, though. But that's where the professional fighter is going to bring that wrinkle to the fold, where we see that, with Dricus, his striking is a little bit sloppy. He's there to be hit. And if his only weapon is pressure, he's going up against Sean Strickland. It's going to be a battle of who can win the pressure. It's going to be very interesting. And we may actually get to see Strickland, the mystical unicorn, Strickland on the ground with his grappling. So it'll be interesting. Harrington, if you have thoughts on that, you can drop some thoughts on that. If not, take it away with your next spot or with your first spot.
It's so funny to me when you bring up the boxing that I've done, because I get to lord that over radio nerds, but I'm here against the guy who's beaten Charles Jourdain in a fight. So don't ever talk about my fighting when we're amongst real fighters. But what I will tell you, I that's crazy, because I was going to go the exact opposite. My best bet was not this one, but I figure since we are talking about the main event, Dricus he's an underdog in this, so I don't have to pick decision, knockout, or submission, anything like that. I can just take the dog for 2 points here. And I think that's where I'm going to go. I understand what you're saying as far as, Dricus not looking the best, but that's actually what makes me lean towards him, right? Because the Darren Till fight, he goes out in the first round, looks like a house on fire. That second round, he gets absolutely dominated. You're like, all right, Darren Till might be back, right? Dricus needs to get it done in the third round, comes out, leaves absolutely nothing in the imagination, gets the takedown early, gets that neck crank in. This is a guy who, like, the reason why I like Dricus in this fight is because Sean Strickland can come out and he can pressure in the first and he can pressure in the second and pressure in the third and keep Dricus backed up and make it look like Dricus has no business being in this fight with Sean Strickland. But over the course of 25 minutes, I feel like Dricus du Plessis is going to hit Sean Strickland with something Sean Strickland's not expecting. Like, the Izzy fight was the perfect fight for him because Izzy relies so much on like timing and setting things up and I'm gonna do this so I can do this and find holes later. He never had that chance against Sean Strickland, constantly backed up. I don't see Dricus taking a backward step, and I think Dricus hits harder. So it's like if both guys are trying to bring the pressure, I'm gonna lean towards the harder hitter. I could be crazy, but as a plus 114 by the parameters of how this game is going, I just see too much value for 2 points on Dricus.
And Strickland by decision will probably be sitting around the same marker, so you guys will be matched up pretty much right in line with 2 points. So it's actually a good strategy if you're going head to head. That way you can match with the strategy as well too. So I like that. All right, so if you've come in with a spot there, then we're gonna actually flip it. I'll have you bring in your next spot, Harrington, and you can take the lead.
All right, so I feel like you're sandbagging me a little bit here, CJ, because the one that I texted you before this was like, yo, can you find me a line on Mike Malott by submission? I went back and I looked at Neil Magny's like last few fights, right? And we all know who and what Neil Magny is at this point, right? Like there was a time where he was on a 7-8 fight win streak, went and fought Lorenz Larkin at UFC 200. And it was like, that to me was the last real time Neil Magny was a guy. Right at this point, he's the UFC's gatekeeper at 170. Right, if you can get past Neil Magny, you're ready for the big time. I see somebody like Mike Malott, and that guy, everything about him screams like big time. This dude is 100% ready to make that leap and get into that top 15 and start pushing towards a belt. You look at guys like that who fought Neil Magny, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Gilbert Burns, Santiago Ponzinibbio at the time, RDA when he was first making a splash at 170. All of these guys finished Neil Magny in pretty spectacular fashion. The only one who let Neil Magny get himself to a decision was Ian Gary. Just because I don't think that guy has any confidence in himself, right? He's a guy who stood there after, talked on the microphone and said, I could have gone in there and gone after the finish and gone after that highlight reel thing, but I decided to play it safe because the win is what's most important. I don't think Mike Malott's thinking like that. Mike Malott has talked openly about being a finisher. And we've seen Neil Magny last 2 fights where he's been finished. Shavkat with a guillotine and then Gilbert Burns with the arm triangle. Like there's something about Magny where, if you're beating him up that badly, you'll find a way to take a neck or take an arm. And I think Mike Malott is always looking for that. I think he's going to find that situation and get it done. So plus 130, I'll take another 2 points.
So Mike Malott at plus 130 by submission. TJ, what do you think about that spot?
I like that pick for sure. I'll go. What's the line on Mike Malott plus round and a half?
Ooh.
For under?
The over.
For the over?
Over round and a half. I don't know. Neil Magny's pretty durable, I feel like, in the beginning of fights at least.
Fair enough. There might be some good value on that line, and it isn't necessarily a bad way to look at it because, even if Mike does finish the second round, it could be a bunch of lines just actually dropped on that fight. Plus 170.
Okay.
So yeah, over 2.5 plus 170 because they don't think it's going to go over likely the second round. So over 2.5 plus 170 would be the line. So you're probably going to be looking at closer to even, probably for over 1.5.
Yeah, I'll take my Malott over 1.5 then.
Yeah, so that's 2-pointer as well.
Yep. Okay, so TJ, I will let you take away so that we've had 2 spots each right now. If you want to add in an extra spot, you can if you had another one in mind. But TJ, let's add your third spot to the table.
I'll do the Surrey City fight under 1.5.
Okay, so Series City already coming and done it once before against Ramon Tavares. He's got that length, stays outside of range really well and enters the pocket really well and just lands. He's done it once already, early stoppage or not. I mean, I think it was inevitable where it was going. He drops him, gets on top of him. It's not his problem that the ref jumped in early. Obviously, he was holding a Series City round one ticket, but the reality of the fact is I just think he's leaps and bounds better. I think the line's actually pretty decent. I hit it minus 161 is one of my plays this week. But Series City is a good spot. So you just want to do straight up money line, or you want to just do the under 1.5?
We'll do under 1.5.
Okay, let's see what that is.
Well, if you combine the two, that's got to be a 2-pointer, no?
So we'll do an SGP with this one, and we'll do Series City and then under 1.5 too as well too. So I'll write that one down.
The biggest thing I see in that fight is, like, obviously Tavares comes out. He's a gunslinger, this guy. You know what I mean? He comes out hot. He ain't looking to pick anyone apart. He's looking to kind of stand there, trade, get his punches off, where I feel like Surrey's a little bit more, quite a bit more technical. And he kind of breaks fights down a little bit. We could see it in the last fight, honestly. Like, regardless, like I said, whatever you want to call it, early stoppage or not, as soon as he found his range, he had Ramon reaching, and as soon as Ramon reached, he came back with a straight 1-2 and dropped him. That's it. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to be very similar. I don't really see it. Like, Ramon didn't come out in his next contenders fight looking much different than the first one. He just had a different opponent who was willing to stand in the center and swing with him. So yeah, that's kind of my reasoning behind it.
Well, perfect breakdown on that, man. That was even the reel I had put out. It's like somebody played Ramon's game. It set him up almost to get that rematch with Siri in Toronto. I think it's one of the safest lines, probably one of the most value money line spots on the card. I think it's just because it's him under the bright lights. It's his debuting fight that they're not giving him that minus 200 and minus 220 that he does deserve.
For me, it's between. I have two underdogs on the main card that I'm really. Yeah, I mean, with this game, it's 2 points one way or another. It doesn't matter if one's plus 160, the other's plus 142. But I'm gonna say Arnold Allen, man. I mean, everyone is on this Movsar Evilov train. He's got a ton of hype. He's talking to Sneakio about marrying 17-year-olds. He's got the world by the balls, man. Everything's going good for this guy, bro. Arnold Allen is like that. The amount of disrespect this guy's getting because he had granted, it was a god-awful performance against Max Holloway, but Max Holloway has been making the best featherweights on the planet look god-awful for the last decade. You know what I mean? Like, literally, since UFC 199, when he points at the ground against Ricardo Lamas and is like, all right, let's stand and bang. From that moment to this, the only guy who's made him look anything close to human is Dustin Poirier at 155 where he's not supposed to be, and Volkanovski. And he's looked damn good against Volkanovski in about, I would say half the fight time they've had. So I can't take anything away from Arnold Allen. You lose one fight against Max Holloway. I think if this fight was booked before Arnold Allen had the Max Holloway fight, I feel like Arnold Allen would have to be, a slightly bigger favorite, like a minus 110, minus 120. I'm not going to let one fight affect my decision making so much. Arnold Allen has like a 12-fight UFC body of work, and he's lost one of them. Evloev, I think his best opponent in the UFC, it's either Dan Ige or Diego Lopes, and Diego came off the couch, right? Like he was a short notice replacement, and he gave Evloev absolutely everything he could handle. Nearly submitted him a couple of times. I don't know, dude. I don't see how he deals with somebody like an Arnold Allen. So I'm gonna take Arnold Allen. I'm taking all 2 pointers across the board. 2 of them hit. I got 4 points. I'm happy with that. You got any thoughts on the Sean Woodson Charles Jourdain fight? I know you've been in there with Jourdain, but I mean he's one of my favorite fighters in the division. So I just wanted to get a sense, like, is minus 190 too much?
That's what Jourdain's at currently. Is minus.
Yeah.
I mean. It's tough to say because when I feel like Jourdain doesn't do the best against clean strikers. You know what I mean? He's a very technical brawler. Like, we watched him against Nathaniel Wood. Mm-hmm. He didn't have the greatest performance against him. This is a guy who's a very good boxer, straight down the pipe. And I feel like Sean Woodson's very similar to this, a lot taller. But I also, when you watch Sean Woodson fight, he kind of can get caught with some of these loopy wild punches here and there as well. So I think that's like more of a pick'em fight, in my opinion. I mean, neither fighter's great on the ground. Woodson, I don't think Jourdain's going to be looking to take down Woodson or vice versa. You know what I mean? Woodson has pretty decent takedown defense anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's closer to a pick'em fight.
Interesting. So there might be value on Sean Woodson at up to plus 160.
He's gonna have to make that ugly early, in order to sort of rattle Woodson early and not let Woodson get into a long rangey game. Because if you can actually crack him early and pressure him, get him on his back foot, Woodson isn't the greatest nail. He will back up and he will start sort of play into the chaos. And he's not good in chaos. He needs to have that clean striking. So if he can get away with that and keep him at bay initially and sort of lure Jourdain into setups, it definitely is, a spot possibly for him there. But Jourdain, we'll see, man. On the ground, I know he's getting better and better. I know. See, that's another example too. A lot of cappers are like, Jourdain on the ground. Look what he did against Gracie. He's a black belt, this and that. But then if you look at, we have Laramie here as a high-level grappler. There's levels, and he's talking about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certain he's gotten better over the years, but getting jiu-jitsu and wrestling are two different aspects of fighting. I feel like people have a hard time differentiating between straight up jiu-jitsu skill and just because your submission game has gotten better does not mean your wrestling has gotten any better. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you can land a guillotine off your back, maybe a triangle or something like this. To me, that doesn't. That's not a lot of value to your overall grappling game.
So, and then just real quick, what about this this Chris Curtis fight? Because I'm seeing Chris Curtis come in here. He had the no contest after him and Imavov had the clash of heads. Before that, drops one to Kelvin Gastelum at UFC 287. Marc-Andre Barriault, meanwhile, beat Eric Anders, and then he beat, I think it was Julian Marquez. He had 2 wins last year. So it's like one guy had a pretty rough 2023. One guy had a perfect 2023. Why is Chris Curtis the minus 180 favorite?
Oh, wow. I mean, probably I would say in that position, it'd probably be overall competition. You know what I mean? Like Curtis has fought in the better guys overall, certainly, but not that he's had great success against the top guys that he's fought. But I don't know. Barrios was big for that weight, though. So compared to Chris Curtis, he's definitely a lot bigger.
Yeah. He's going to have to crack that body early as well too to try to gas Barriault and get him sort of take a little bit of mustard off the punches, because Barriault has some decent forward pressure, and if he can get you up on the cage and dirty box and mix it up and make it dirty, that's when it's going to be an interesting fight.
TJ, sure. How are you going to handle it, right? If you go 3 of 3, you pull a strong 5 points, you've got the fighters in the coaches, I guess is coach versus couch, right? If you got the coaches in the lead 5-0, and then somebody else comes on and just butchers it the next week, gives it up to dumbasses like me, and then like it's your team going down. I feel like if you get a clean sweep, you got to come back to defend that. No?
Oh, 100%. I'm always down to come back and defend that for sure. I mean, the one thing I will say though is like when it comes to fighters and coaches, is there's a lot more emotional betting, I feel like, than the guys who are on the couch. I will say this.
Love that you guys came on. Definitely want to have you both back. Harrington, the reason why I asked you, you're passionate when you talk about fighting, and when you're not being pressured by Bisping, who's constantly just leaning on you. But I love that he's what he's doing. He's actually letting you start to do some of the breakdowns more and talk about the fights more, which is awesome. Because then you get to see that wrinkle on that side too. So,
yeah, my forehead very wrinkly. You're right.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Couch versus the Coach. Tune into the Donttap podcast.